I'm a big classic rock fan. My dad got me into classic rock music too, so I can credit him for golf, sports writing, and classic rock.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Whole Story. Robby and Jonathan here, and we had a great chat today that you guys are about to hear with a new friend, Nate Oxman, the author of the Philly Phenoms, but he also does a lot of other things. Jonathan, what did you think about our chat with Nate?
Well, I'm once again tempted to read a book, so that's a good thing.
It was written for like 10 to 15-year-olds.
Right, 270 pages. Maybe I could get Micaiah to read it, and I'll
There's
read
some
it
illustrations.
Yeah, there's pictures, so that should be good. Yeah, I mean, you think about what we do from a genre perspective, right? This is podcasting, and then also, I don't know. I mean, I've thought about writing books in my life, just not reading them. And so, for someone to take that on, to have the vision for it, to bring it to completion, and it's also in the world of golf, which we love. For all the adults on here, is like, well, I don't really want to read a book. That's okay. He's also a caddy at Merion, so you're gonna want to have a listen to see, to figure out like what does that look like from the back end of things. So,
yeah,
everybody,
and he's a teacher, so it's probably very well written. Like knows golf because he's been a caddy for 30 years now. So
that's right.
Yeah, I'm actually going to get a copy. I'll read it, and maybe we can do a book report series. Maybe we should do a book report podcast on golf books.
Probably shouldn't do that. You can do that. I think that'd be really good for you.
Good for me. Oh man, we have talked to golf authors though, and a lot of the stuff, man, it's really good. I'm a big fan of audiobooks because in the car or on the best ball road trip, I was listening to the book about Tiger and his journey. So I thought that was really good. I listen to golf podcasts all the time. So audiobooks are my thing. But anyway, yeah, great interview. Great chat with our new friend, Nate. As always, we are brought to you by our friends at Summit Golf Brands. Nice Be Dratty shirt that you and I have on today. The fall collection is coming out. We're excited about that. It's going to be really good. Dan Drellinger, and all the great folks at Summit Golf Brands that represent Be Dratty, Zero Restriction, Fairway and Green, and EP New York. That's the ladies' clothes. I don't think you and I'll be getting or wearing any of that stuff. But if you go to any of those sites and use Best Ball 20, you can get 20% off your order. So many thanks to those guys for supporting us and what we're doing here at Best Ball. Jonathan, why don't you tell us a little bit about Western Birch?
Yeah, Western Birch, for all of you who are colorblind like me, they come in different colors. You get to choose which ones you want to lose and which ones you want to find. To be honest, I still have so many of these tees because we just can't break them. They're great. I've just started using the driver, and they've got all the marks, so I know exactly how deep I'm supposed to put the ball, or how deep I'm supposed to put the tee. So check them out. You can use Best Ball as a coupon code in there, and you get a nice little gift for listening to the show.
Yeah. Great friends of the program, and we've got others. If you listen to our course correction series, we've got the Stack System, we've got Arcos. I've got Mr. JP Guidry of Guidry Golf and Sport that's helping me out on the course corrections, trying to work out and get in better shape and stuff. So
I feel like I'm cheating, but that's fine. That's
a cheat. You got golf lessons. Let me work out.
I know.
Yeah. So anyway. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoy this episode of The Whole Story with Nate Oxman, the author of the Philly Phenoms. All right. Well, Nate Oxman, thanks for joining us on the Whole Story podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, Nate, you hailed from Philadelphia. We'll get into a little of that story, but as we know you're a writer and do all these things, but before we get into that, we ask everybody, like, how did you get into golf? What was your first experience picking up a golf club, somebody handing you a golf club saying, hey, let's go do this crazy game? Tell us about that.
I was 8 years old, and my dad is a die-hard golfer. He still plays 2 or 3 times a week. He's 73. So as soon as I was ready, he put a golf club in my hands. He learned from his father, who was an occasional golfer at Cobb's Creek in Philadelphia, the municipal course that they're restoring right now. And then when my dad was in high school, he moved out to the suburbs and he started caddying at Philadelphia Country Club. and that was his intro to golf. Then he started caddying on the PGA Tour before I was born, and he jokes all the time that I was the reason why he had to stop caddying on tour. My sister and I were born. I have a twin sister, so when we were born, he was forced to give it up and get a real job, and he still kind of needles me for it because he wishes he was still out there.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, well, I am sure he doesn't really regret being able to be home and hang out with you guys. So
That's quite an origination story. Do you feel like that's a lot more pressure then? Because your dad obviously isn't bad at golf and understood it and was, I mean, caddying at the pro level. Does that mean your world had to catch up pretty quick?
Yeah, and actually, my uncle, his story is even crazier. So my uncle and my dad caddied on tour like when they were in college in the summer, and that's what a lot of tour caddies were back then. They were guys, in their college years who would just go out in the summer and just grab a bag and do it. There weren't a lot of professional caddies back then. And then my uncle did it part time while he built a career here in Philadelphia. And then, when Tom Watson's caddy, Bruce Edwards, passed away, my uncle grabbed the bag. So my uncle was on the bag for Tom Watson when he almost won the Open Championship at Turnberry in 2009.
wow.
2009. Yeah, sorry. So between my dad and my uncle, yeah, there were some big shoes to fill. But I was lucky enough to grow up only about 2 miles from Merion Golf Club. So when I got old enough to caddy at 14, similar to golf, when my dad put a club in my hand, he said, this is your summer job starting now. And I was all about it. I just wanted to be around golf. So I started caddying at Merion in 1995, and I really haven't left since then.
Well, we were going to ask more about the caddying piece later, but since you bring it up, yeah, caddy at Marion, like that's a pretty big deal. I mean, everybody, we ask so many people, and we'll ask you later your favorite golf logo, and a lot of people say Marion, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have the unique wicker baskets. It's just an iconic golf course. People love talking about it and love the chance when they get to it. Jonathan and I have never had the opportunity to play it, but what is it like caddying there?
It's as good as it gets. People say it's the best inland course in the country, and I really believe it. I tell people all the time that the best thing about Merion is that there aren't two holes anywhere near alike, and there aren't two greens anywhere near alike. So you're playing 18 awesome golf holes, totally different from each other, and you're putting on 18 totally different greens that are so fun. Um, so I caddied from 1995 until 2006 or so, when I was trying to figure out what to do after I graduated from college in '04 from Penn State. And I kind of hung around because the money was so good, there was a little bit of pressure to get a real job, but I tried to push it off as long as I possibly could. And then I got a job writing full time in the suburbs here in Philly. So I took 2006 and most of 2007 off. And then I met my wife, and she kind of laid down the law. She's a teacher, so we were on opposite schedules. I was laying out the newspaper at night, going to cover a high school football game, working 3 in the afternoon to 3 in the morning. So we were on opposite schedules, and she's like, don't think this is going to work if we keep up, passing each other, a couple hours a day. So I went back to school to get certified to teach. And at that point, I was like, I got to go back to Merion to make some money. So I called the caddy master. I said, can I just come back and caddy? And he's like, well, we need an assistant caddy master. So I did that in 2009. I went back, and I've been the assistant caddy master part-time from '09 till now. There's no
So
reason to leave. I mean, it's literally a mile and a half from my house, and people would think I was crazy if I left, I think. I still get to caddy 4 or 5 times a week in the summer and a couple times during the school year. So it's a perfect part-time job.
So I've used a caddy once or twice, but typically, like the course resembles itself from hole to hole. So how much more difficult is that to sort of every single hole? I mean, granted, you know the 18 holes now, but how much more important is the caddy for that golfer who, let's be honest, it might be the only time in their life they get to come play Marion?
I think it's really important because there's so much local knowledge. If you go back and watch footage from the 2013 U.S. Open when Justin Rose won, you'll see just players miss putt after putt after putt because those greens take forever to get to know. There's still spots that are tricky for sure. So the greens, you definitely need a local caddy. And then we have tons of blind shots. So you need to know the lines for sure. And then there are some holes that look downhill that don't play downhill, that are uphill but don't play uphill. And as you guys talked about before, with the wicker baskets, you can't really tell what the wind's doing all the time. So knowing the prevailing winds is another reason why you need a local caddy. So next year, USM in August, we'll see how many local caddies we get to throw out there. I caddied in '05, and I think we used a decent number of our caddies then. So it'll be fun to get back out there, hopefully.
And then the 2030 Open, I believe, is back there at Merion again.
Yeah, we'll be rolling 30 Open, 34 Women's Open, 40 Open, 50 Open. I think 54 maybe Women's Open again, something like that. So it'll be cool the next 20 years or so if I can make it that long.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you've got kind of the perfect schedule for doing it during the summertime as a teacher, being an educator, and then being able to have your summers to do something else like this. Again, why would you give up the opportunity to be at Merion if you're that close? But it's not only this is not only what you're doing, right? You're also a writer, and we've learned more about that. You sent us some information about a book you've written, but I know you wrote for the Tri-Cities or
Tri-State Golf, yeah.
Yeah, Tri-State Golf. So how did you get into writing? Like, what was the genesis there?
So similar to golf, like I remember when my dad used to come home from golf and I would always ask for a scorecard and I would just study his scorecard. I loved it for whatever reason. It was just interesting to me to look at how he played. And similar when he came home from work, he would throw the newspaper at me if I was sitting on the couch and I would just go right to the sports page, which annoyed my uncle because, he's into politics. So he always wanted me to read real stories, but I just flipped to the sports section. And back then the papers here in Philly had great sports sections. So I would read every single article, study every box score. And I just fell in love with writing. So I studied journalism at Penn State and then worked as a sports writer, like I mentioned, covering mostly high school sports, but a ton of golf here in the Philadelphia area, a lot of local golf. And we have, some of the best amateur golf in the country here. And then whenever there was a pro event, I would get to cover that too. And I always had this idea for a novel in the back of my head, kind of based on my childhood in golf. And this photo above my head is the cover of the book that a Merion member painted for me. But that's the clubhouse at the course where I grew up playing. It was called Edgemont Country Club. Totally blue-collar place, like in a Philly, really rich private golf club area. This was like a blue-collar place that you would have plumbers playing with lawyers and doctors, playing with contractors. So it was a really cool place. And that's where I grew up playing. And there were just so many stories around that place that I kind of like banked them in my memory. And then when I had an opportunity to start writing the book, maybe 10 years ago, before my first daughter was born, I started, putting some Word docs together. And then I took a sabbatical from teaching a few years ago and I wrapped it up. I got the manuscript down. And then the last 2 years, I kind of spent editing it and finding a publisher and doing that huge process. So it was my first kind of dive into some creative writing and the fiction world, but it's been great. And again, I think I'm lucky that a lot of it's based on my story, and I have so much experience writing golf that I was able to do the play-by-play in a way that people could understand whether they have a background in golf or not. It's for 10 to 15-year-old kids, so it's a great way for kids to learn the game, in a non-threatening way. And it's really been exciting for me to share it with the kids in the Philly area.
Did you find it easier to write your book than to write for Philly fans? Because they're notorious for turning on people.
Yeah, you can never make anybody happy. So if I was covering a high school sports, game, like a girls' basketball game or something, and, I didn't paint somebody in the most flattering light, you would hear it right away.
Really?
Not just pro sports, high school sports too. Yeah.
I was just about to say, at least with a paper, you're kind of behind the scenes, as opposed to like a call-in show. There's no way I would ever consider doing a call-in show in Philly. But you write some things, you publish it. I mean, now I guess they can get back to you pretty quick.
Yeah. I didn't get a lot of hate mail, but I got some. Can't make everybody happy all the time. especially when you're on deadline, right? So I would go to
Right.
this basketball game and I would come home and have to write the story and then lay out the paper. So there was a lot of pressure to put on deadline. So sometimes you make little mistakes if you don't have time to catch them carefully.
You said the Philly Phenoms is written for like the 10 to 15 age bracket. I think that might be about my reading level. So,
Perfect,
but I mean,
then.
yeah, it's perfect. So is it really, I mean, would adults enjoy the content as well?
I think so. One of my goals was to write it in a way that I speak. So there aren't a lot of big words in there. The story flows really well. After having, a dozen years or so experience teaching sixth grade English, where the kids are asked to analyze every single thing the author did, every word they chose, why the character did this, why did the setting change, and I watched a lot of kids get turned off to reading, and that bothered me a lot. So I wanted to do something totally opposite. So there's not a lot of deep thinking going on here. The story's laid out again, like I said, as it is. I think the characters are relatable for kids and adults. The main character, Lee Lomax, this 10-year-old kid, his antagonist is like a 65-year-old old crotchety member, kind of this drunk guy at the club. So I'm sure most golfers, regardless of their age, can relate to that.
Well, it sounds like I've got a friend who's an editor, and if you took a year or two to edit, as opposed to write it, self-publish, throw it on your blog or something like that,
Right.
that changes the quality of the writing, correct?
Yeah, that was another goal too, because like I said before, whenever those little errors would slip into my, newspaper articles, it bothered me. And I didn't want my credibility to be hurt by, having some errors in the final product here. So I went through it over and over and over again and proofread it a bunch of times. And the editors at the publishing company, Atmosphere Press, were great to deal with. So hopefully there aren't too many errors in there. But they say, like, when you're reading your own writing, it's hard to catch everything. So I try to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. I try to get my 12-year-old. I have 3 daughters. My 12-year-old to help me out, but she had no interest.
I was just about ready to ask. I saw the picture on social media of you signing with your publisher and your daughters and your wife. I was like, well, you've got 4 people at least at home to be critics on whether or not the book's a good start, right?
Yeah, I've told this story before, but when the first book came in the mail, the first copy came in the mail, like, it was a big deal to me. I didn't think I would ever write a novel when I was a kid, or let alone get it published. So it was really cool for me to hold that first book. And then I showed it to my kids, and my 12-year-old just kind of like turned the other way. My 9-year-old asked me to like go outside and play with her. And my 5-year-old, same thing. She was like, let's go downstairs in the basement and swing on the swing. So they were totally indifferent to it. But hopefully they'll come around. I should have made the 12-year-old read it for summer reading this summer for sure.
That's true. You got to sign it to your students.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're in a different boat than many others. Jonathan, how many podcast episodes do you think your kids have listened to?
Oh, only whenever they're forced to in the car with me.
Yeah. Yeah, mine. I have 2 kids. They both play golf, but
Right.
getting them to listen to stories. So maybe a story about a writer in the golf space would be something more interesting. But what were some of the challenges that you went through as you were writing this thing?
So it was really long at the start when I finished the manuscript, and it still is pretty long. For a middle grade fiction novel, it's about 270 pages, so it is pretty long. It was probably like 350 when I finished the manuscript. So cutting out some scenes that I thought were really well written and I thought the reader would really like, that was a big, big challenge. But my editor was awesome with that. And I had a friend who I grew up with. He caddied for me at Merion, with me at Merion for a few years, and we played basketball against each other. He's a professor at Drexel University here in Philly, and he's had a few books published by some of the big publishing houses. So I gave him the manuscript, and he was a big help too. He's like, yeah, I think you have too many kind of golf play-by-play scenes. Let's cut out one of those. And one of them was a big one. So thankfully, between my editor and my friend Matt Smith, we were able to chop it down. That was definitely the biggest challenge. And then, going back to what I was talking about before with, my experience as an English teacher, one of the things that works really well when you're able to visualize the story, right, as a reader. So that's something that was a challenge for sure, especially because, like I said, I wanted these kids who have never picked up a golf club before to be able to read this and understand what was going on. So painting the picture for the reader during the golf scenes was difficult, and I had to go back over and over and over and make sure that I was being crystal clear. And then whenever I added in a golf term that I didn't think kids would understand, putting some context clues, to explain what the heck that term meant, even like simple things like a birdie and an eagle, that was a challenge just to make sure I didn't miss any of those.
I've been around golf for a long time. I still have no idea what an eagle is.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it. Haven't been a part of it.
If you use terms like shank and
Right.
duff and chunks, yeah,
Right.
that would resonate with most golfers out there.
I can
Yeah.
visualize those. I can't visualize the other ones.
Well, I guess in your experience as a caddy and now as a author of a book, do you have other ideas that are kind of percolating? And like, I might have another idea for another book, or is this going to be a sequel or a series of books down the road?
Yeah, for sure. I think I did a good job of creating the main character, this kid. So there's a potential there. I thought it'd be cool if you guys remember, like when I was young, they used to have these choose your own adventure books where,
Oh, yeah.
you got to a certain spot and you got to turn to a page depending on what you wanted the character to do. So I thought it'd be cool to apply that to golf. A guy has a shot and he hits it to 2 feet, turn to this page, or he chunks it in the water, turn to this page.
That's
So
a great
I have
idea.
that, and then again, the antagonist, that character, I think I did a good job of creating too. So there could be something with him. And then my next project, we have a caddy at Merion who played on tour for a long time, named John Elliott. So I'm working on a project with him, which is going to be really cool when it gets finished. He makes John Daly look like a priest. So there's so many good stories that are going to go into this book that I've done a lot of research on, and I'm going to dive in after I'm done promoting this one.
Well, that choose your own adventure would be fun for adults, right? You could either turn into like the hack at a muni by the end of your story, or you could be like on the tour as a pro. You just
Yeah.
have to decide like, I'm going to practice tonight, or I just met a
Right.
girl. I'm going to go to the bar instead.
Love it. I'm going to remember those ideas.
That'd
Thank
be
you.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
I
could
think
also-
it could be cool.
You could also take your antagonist and do like many books or movies have done, and do a prequel. So
Yeah.
like the Hunger Games, right? And
Yep.
be like, where was this guy when he was 13 years old? And maybe he was like the promising young star, and something happened. So man,
Yeah, I
just,
love
you
that
start
idea,
writing these
too.
things down. Don't worry about
Right.
giving us credit for it.
Yeah. Yep. I'll give you guys credit for sure.
Nate
Very
and
nice.
best ball.
And baseball. Yeah, as long as the crotchety old guy doesn't have anything to do with baseball, he didn't start it. And,
No.
well, you mentioned your cover artist, a local artist there, Paolo Costa,
Costa, yeah.
and then Chandler Withington did some other did a golf course map, and then Ryan Gable, or alternate golf logos, did some artwork for you as well. So it was kind of a team effort, at least in different pieces and parts of the books, right?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to do something different with the cover. And so this Merion member who I've known for probably 15 years, I could be wrong, but I think during COVID, he started to paint, as a hobby. And he used to, post them. He still does. He posts them on Instagram. And I loved his style. And he did one of a caddy that's hanging up in the bag room at Merion. So when I finished the manuscript, I didn't just want the publisher to make like a generic cover of this kid and his dad. So I asked him to kind of brainstorm some ideas. And the first one he did actually ended up being the title page in the book. And then this one was the final version after, 2 or 3 tries. He landed on this one, and I think he killed it. The colors are awesome. I've gotten so many compliments on it. And then Chandler, Withington was an assistant golf professional at Merion for a while, and then he became the head pro at Hazeltine National in Minnesota, and they held the Ryder Cup in 2016. And he left the golf business, the golf professional side of it anyway, to pursue golf art. So he does a lot of sketching, and the course map that he did to kind of serve as a reference for the reader turned out really well too. It comes before chapter 1. So whenever there's talk in the book about, a hole at the country club in the story, the reader can flip back to the map. And then Ryan Gable did the logo for this fictional course, and he's killed it with alternate golf logos on Instagram. He's done some great stuff, and that space has grown huge. Just the golf logo business has ballooned since COVID, I would say.
So when you sell your millionth copy, does that mean you're going to open up your own golf course and name it after the fictional place?
I should. So the course went under maybe 10 years ago. It was It was owned by a little family who built the golf club and the golf course, and then they just didn't want to manage it anymore. So they sold it, and now it's a bunch of townhomes. So it's tough to drive by knowing what was once there. So it'd be cool to kind of create something like that again. I'm sure it'd be expensive as heck here in Philly, but it would be fun.
What was the signature hole of the now fictional golf course?
Oh, good question. Probably number 9, although people will probably chime in and yell at me for this, but number 9 was this like uphill dog leg par 4, that when you got to like the dog leg, you had this awesome downhill shot with the driving range in the back and the kind of like a stone wall like there is in this photo there. I'm guessing it was farmland back in the day, so there's all these really cool stone walls, and there's a stone wall in the back, so it was an awesome backdrop for your the finish to the front 9 there. But it was like a mom and pop design, so I don't think they had any input from like a professional architect, but they did a cool job. And in the fall it was beautiful with the leaves changing colors.
What other kind of writing are you currently doing now?
I still contribute to Tri-State Golf. Maybe it's a quarterly magazine, so I just did a big article on the upper course at Baltusrol reopening. Gil Hanse did it, and it reopened in May. We went out there for the grand reopening. That's an unbelievable place. So I did a feature on that. And then whenever something else pops up locally and the publisher asks me to contribute, technically I'm the staff writer, but I don't do as much writing as I used to because I have 800 other things going on.
Well, this question is not for me and Robby, but if someone wanted to write a book, where would you recommend starting? Like, what would you, or more importantly, maybe in the middle of the process, they'd be like, hey, this is going to happen, so just be ready for it.
I think, leaning on as many people as possible to help you is key. There's no way that I couldn't have turned out a good product, and I've been lucky enough to win a couple awards. If I didn't have, a great team at Atmosphere, but if my friend Matt Smith didn't help me and didn't give me that advice to chop it down, because the readers are usually young. So, try, and by, joining different groups online, different writers groups, you can, post a paragraph or post a chapter and get some great feedback. There are so many forums out there. We're lucky that technology has helped in that sense. I don't know how I could have done it, 30 years ago. So, finding resources online, I think, is huge. And then just not being afraid to go back and revise. That's something that I always struggled with. Anytime I finished a story, I just wanted to, throw my hands up and say, it's out there, I'm done. But being willing to kind of read your own work and be a critic of yourself and try to make it as good as it possibly can be, no matter how many times you have to revise it, is huge. And I've never been good at that. But like I said before, I forced myself to do that because I knew this was going to be a big project.
Have you sat to read for the audiobook yet?
No, I'm trying to find I have a terrible voice. It's funny, like,
come on.
Once I started doing teaching online during COVID, and then ever since then, I've recorded so many lessons for the students who are absent, that trying to listen to those is definitely cringy, as the kids would say. So I definitely need to find somebody with a great voice. I have somebody in mind that I've gotten to know, but I'm sure it's going to come with a big price tag.
You need to get like a 16-year-old or something to do it for you.
I thought about that too. Like, since I've been teaching for 16 years, I have so many kids who I've taught, and so many of them are.
Who wants extra credit?
Yeah, just get a group of 6 of them together and pick a character and find a narrator. And I think they could do something cool. The drama program in our schools here in the suburbs of Philly is really strong, and there's a lot of kids who would love to do it. I think if I found the right group, I wouldn't have to pay them.
I know of two drama groups locally here in Augusta that would probably be up for something like that.
Yeah, it'd be a cool experience for
Yeah,
everybody, I
that'd be
think, right?
really neat.
The Philly Phenoms Broadway show. I can
Yeah,
see it coming.
that'd be cool.
That'd be really cool. Well, we're big fans of golf writers, so excited about what you're doing. But who, as a golf writer, do you look up to? Do you read? Do you recommend to others to, hey, go get their stuff?
There are a few. So I'm going to space on the title of the book, but there's this writer. He's long gone. His name's George Plimpton, who did a lot of like participatory journalism. So he wrote like Paper Lion, where he went to training camp with the Detroit Lions in like the 70s or 80s, and was like their eighth string quarterback, and kind of wrote like a diary. And then he did the same in golf. He was a terrible golfer, but he tried to become a professional golfer, and he documented it. So even though all of his work is really old, it's timeless. So I would really encourage young kids to read him. Um, a little bit of inspiration from the book came from John Strige, another longtime golf writer. So he wrote a book called When War Played Through, about how during the World Wars, when the tour events stopped hosting majors, because so many people were all fighting in the war. They had these exhibition matches, that the Red Cross staged around the country, where pros would tour the country, right, and go to Philly and play against, two local PGA pros from the Philly section, or the best amateurs in Philly. And I kind of brought that into this story with 9/11. So the main character, Lee, experiences 9/11. He's homesick. And then the Red Cross announces that they're going to have some matches around the country on the anniversary of 9/11 to celebrate and raise money for the victims' families. And that's in the book. That's how the book culminates. So John Strige was a huge inspiration. And then Michael Bamberger's a long time golf writer here in Philly, who kind of has his own style. He's a quirky guy, and he's got a quirky writing style, but I admire his ability to kind of pull out the unique personality of the subject that he's writing about, rather than just writing, he hit an 8-iron here to 5 feet and made a birdie.
Well,
Are
definitely.
the,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Robbie.
no, I was going to say, well, is the book going to be on the shelf at Merion? I think that's a good question to ask.
Yeah, so I was really, really, thankful that the golf chairman just went to our new director of golf, and he said, "Hey, let's put this book in the golf shop." I didn't even pressure him at all. I didn't think it was even a possibility. I didn't want to go there. So it's in the golf shop now at Merion. It's in the archives. We have probably the most famous and most in-depth archives room in the country. It's a small room, but there's so much stuff in it because we've had so much history here at Merion. So it's nice that they're able to sell the book for me in the
Well,
golf shop.
they want to be able to say, as you continue to hit it big time, that this is one of our caddies.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a cool connection.
Absolutely.
Sounds like you need to take your 12-year-old to the archives. Maybe that will be the impressive part. We're like, wait a minute. You didn't tell me you were going to be in the archives.
I know, right? Yeah, well, I took my 9-year-old. So we have two courses at Merion: the championship course, the East course, and then there's a West course at like a mile up the road. That's like a 6,000 yarder, mostly cart golf, although a lot of people do walk it. Mostly for the older members, and then it's a perfect course for juniors. So I took my middle daughter, who's 9, out there last Monday and rode around in the golf cart. She cared about a couple things: driving the golf cart, having a soda, and then hitting some golf shots. So no pressure at all. She could take as many swings as she wanted. I didn't, say one thing other than great shot, and she had a blast. So I think if you can do that, at least like plant the seed, you're going to be okay. I don't see a reason to force it on any kids, especially when we're trying to expose them to as much as possible and let them find their own way. Um, I think that, she'll eventually probably be into golf, and then the 12-year-old will pick it up, at her own pace. And my 5-year-old is probably going to be the best athlete of all of them. She's going to take after her mother. So she could do anything. She picked up a tennis racket. She could play tennis. She picked up a golf club. She could swing it for sure.
That's fun to watch the kids figure out what they want to do. So, and it's fun when you're introducing kids. Somebody told me one time when my kids were young, they said make it fun for them. If they want to drive the cart, great. If they want to go jump in a bunker, great. Like
Yep.
let them have fun being there, and then they'll figure out that they actually might want to hit a few shots.
Yeah,
So
it's so hard that, you just got to let them enjoy, like, even making contact, right? And getting the ball up in the air. That's a huge milestone as a kid, is getting the ball airborne, I think.
yeah, well, it's going to be fun years down the road when Jonathan and I open up with one of our guests and we say, "What got you into golf?" And they say, "Well, I picked up this book, the Philly Phenoms, and that's kind of what got me interested." And I went out and started playing. So it'll be a good story.
Thanks. That's the number one goal, is to
That's the goal.
get as many kids playing as possible.
That is the goal. Well, I don't know if you have any good answers for this because you sound like you're incredibly busy writing, teaching, caddying, all the other things, but maybe you get to play some golf. But we ask everybody the same question. What is your most memorable golf shot?
Golf shot. Oof. The closest I've ever come to a hole in one was on number 15 at Merion when I was probably 17 years old. It's like a 215-yard par three, yeah. And I hit 3-wood, and you can't, if the pin's in the back, you can't see the ball finish. So I knew it was close. It was tracking from the tee, and then I got like 20 yards short of the green, and there was no ball there. So I was like, "Oh my God, this is it." I made a hole in one, but then someone started walking toward me from the next tee with the ball in his hand. So my first thought was like, he picked the ball up out of that hole, didn't he? He ruined my experience of picking the ball up out of the hole. And then as I got closer to the hole, I saw the ball mark literally like just in one, maybe ball mark over from the lip of the cup. So that was as close as I could possibly get to a hole in one without getting one. That's definitely the most memorable shot.
That's
I can
funny.
still remember it. Yeah.
Because you're closest to the hole ended up being like 80 yards away at the next tee box.
Yeah, it was wild. I don't think I've come, I've hit it to like a couple feet a bunch of times, but that's definitely the closest I've been to a hole in one, and that was almost 30 years ago.
See, I'm bad enough at golf. I'd rather have that story, I think, than hole in one. I'd be like, I was so close. It missed by 100 yards.
Yep.
Another thing we like to do is called the quick nine. Just a little back and forth, easy questions here.
Awesome.
I'm going to exclude Merion from this one, but what is the favorite course that you've played?
So I've been very, very lucky that since I've been at Merion for so long and I have so many great relationships with the members there, they're so generous that if I, tell them I'm going to this place for vacation or I really want to play this course, they'll help set it up for me. So when my dad turned 70 a few years ago, I was like, I'm going to do something big. So I planned this trip to Long Island. People say like Long Island is the best golf in the country. And it's true, I think. Philly's probably second, but Long Island's first. So we played a few different places, but the best one is National Golf Links of America. And to get to experience that with my dad, is unbelievable. It's better than any shot that I've ever hit. Just seeing him out there, just enjoying it. And he won't mind if I say this, but so when you make the drive, you turn off of like the main highway on Long Island, and then you drive pretty much right to Shinnecock Hills, right? So there's this road that goes through Shinnecock, and Dad said, "Is that Shinnecock?" And I said, "Yeah." And then as we pull and kind of climb up even steeper, you go past Shinnecock, and then you can see like National's clubhouse on the hill. And he's like, "Are we going to National?" And I said, "Yep." And then he just burst into tears.
Wow.
Which was really cool. I mean, it's an unbelievable drive. If you're even out there on vacation, you have to make the drive because it's a public road. So it's just so cool. And the setting is unbelievable there with, surrounded by water. The most beautiful place in the world.
That's great.
That's cool. Well, those and Merion are on our bucket list. So we've got to ask, do you still have anything left on your bucket list?
Yeah, I've never played golf in California, so it'd be cool to go out to Pebble and, play Pebble and Cypress and those places. Those are definitely on the bucket list. And then There's a place in Nebraska called Sand Hills that people say is, could be the best course in the country. I've never been out there, so some California golf, and Sand Hills in Nebraska in the middle of nowhere. That's probably comes to mind first.
Not too bad of choices there.
Yeah.
All right. You've been around golf for a while. What would you say is the best course that no one knows about?
Well, one of them here is in Philly. It's called Gulf Mills. It's a really sleepy private club, really old money. We probably have 30 or so Merion members who are members at Gulf Mills too. In the most of the season, if you're at Merion, there are 120, 140 players a day, so it's pretty jammed. Gulf Mills will get like 100 less, so there'll be like 30 to 40 players. So you go out, you can pretty much get on the first tee whenever you want. It's right near the King of Prussia Mall, like one of the biggest malls in the country, but when you're out there, you feel like, you're in the middle of nowhere. It's a really cool place, tons of elevation changes, like Merion, tons of different golf holes. It's from, I think, 1916, so it's been there for a long time. And many people outside of Philly, unless they're into golf course architecture, have never heard of it. And, when people want to come to Philly to play private golf, they want to go to Merion. They want to go to Aronimink, where the PGA is next year. Philadelphia Cricket Club's hosted some events lately. They had the Truist this past year. So those are like the big three that come to mind. But Gulf Mills is as good as it gets.
Nice. Well, when you get to your bucket list course, who's going to be in your dream foursome?
My dad for sure. I'm going to eliminate the other two, so I'll keep the other two spots open and just play with him. Unfortunately, since I have so many jobs and since I've been busy promoting the book this summer, and then I have 3 daughters, I don't get to play as much with him as I would like. But it's the best thing in the world just to be able to share the golf course and share the day with him. And as you guys know, that's one of the great things about golf is you can play with a 10-year-old and you can play with, a person who's 100 years old.
Yeah. It's
only 2 spots there. I dodged the question, but a twosome is just fine.
Nope. It's about who you play with.
Yep.
All right. What is your walk-up song when you get up to the first tee?
Good question. I don't need like some kind of banger, like a big anthem or anything. I'm a big classic rock fan. My dad got me into classic rock music too, so I can credit him for golf, sports writing, and classic rock. So probably "The Weight" by the band. I named my oldest daughter Anna Lee, based on a character in the song, and my dad's name is Lee, and then Lee Lomax, the main character in the book. They're all named after my dad. So "The Weight" by the band is for sure my walk-up song.
I love it. What is your favorite club in the bag?
I tell people all the time when I'm playing with them the first time that I do a lot of things decently well. I'm like my index is like a little more than 5, so I could shoot like 75 or 95 if I'm playing terribly. But I can hit driver, 240 down the middle with the best of them. I don't hit it far, but I can hit it down the middle. That's the best club in the bag, I would think. Who knows what's going to happen after that, but I can hit my driver well.
If you hit your driver consistently 240 down the middle, that shaves quite a few strokes off.
Yeah, especially at Merion where you have to hit it in the fairway or you're going to make a double, unless you get lucky.
I have to figure out a driver before I go to Merion. All right. Favorite snack on the golf course?
My wife would yell at me because she knows I go most rounds without eating anything. But probably like a protein bar or something, nothing exciting. I've been like as skinny as a rail my whole life, and my wife's been on me forever about gaining weight. So caddying like is not good, if you're trying to gain weight. You can't eat cheeseburgers out there. I probably walk, on average 7.5 miles a day when I'm looping, and I hardly ever play golf in a cart. So I should eat more than I do out on the golf course, but nothing exciting.
Does Merion, this is a side question, does Merion have like a go-to food item?
Yeah, I should know the answer to this, but they stole a peanut butter jelly and bacon sandwich from somewhere, maybe like 10 years ago, and they brought it to the halfway house. So that's definitely the signature. item at the halfway house.
God, that sounds amazing.
Bacon on a peanut butter jelly.
PB&J and bacon. I don't know if you want to eat it when it's like 100, but
I know what I'm eating for dinner.
It's popular. I haven't heard anybody take a bite and say this is terrible.
Yeah. All right. Again, Merion is one of those logos that people answer to this next question, but let's take them out of the running. Favorite golf course logo?
I've never been to Wingfoot, but I've always loved Wingfoot's logo. That's a cool one. I like the simple ones. You see. Oh, here's a good one. So there's a 9-hole course just at the edge of Woodstock, New York, in the Catskills. It's a little private club, but if you go on vacation there, you want to go and see where the concert was held, which is like 45 minutes away from the town. They'll let you play. If you say, hey, I'm staying nearby, can I play this golf course while I'm here? They'll let you on. And the logo is really cool. And Ryan Gable, who did the logo for the fictional course and for my book, he retouched the Woodstock one. So it has like the peace sign, and it has the little bird that, people probably can picture from the Woodstock logo sitting on the guitar. So it's got that little bird up top and then the peace sign below it. That's really cool. That's probably my favorite logo, and most people don't know about it. Anytime like somebody has a contest on Instagram or online or something, I'll submit that Woodstock one because most people don't know it.
Yeah, that's super
really
unique too.
Yeah,
and if you're up in that area, you might as well go to Sullivan County Golf Club. Another writer, Tom Coyne, has a lot to do with that revitalization.
Yeah, great call.
So,
great call.
And great logo. So
Yeah, and Jason Kelsey, Philly guy, is part owner, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Is you don't have a character named Jason Kelsey in your book?
I should have put him in there. So he lives maybe a half mile from Merion, and he plays there a bunch. We have a big outing in the spring for the Eagles Autism Foundation where Kelsey and all the big names come, and it's a blast. They take out the tee markers and they make them pylons, so that's pretty cool. Everybody has a great time. It's a lot of fun.
Time.
Yeah.
All right, last question. Finish this sentence. The best part of golf is?
Playing with people that you love, for sure. It's funny that people come to Merion and they're so worried about playing well. They're playing this bucket list place, and they might be a low single digit handicapper, and they're like, oh, I want to shoot 75 today. And I don't tell them, you shouldn't be thinking about that, but that's what I'm thinking. You just need to enjoy being out there with people you love. I wish I could give a ticket to everybody and say, hey, this ticket will get you onto Merion, because everybody should get to experience great places like that, because there are so many in the game. And I think we're in a good spot where if you have the means, you can knock off some of those with charity rounds and stuff. There's so many auctions online that if you have the means, you can get your way onto those private clubs. But there are a lot of them too, where if you write a heartfelt letter to somebody, a handwritten letter, and they can make it work for you, they'll do it. More often than not, you'll be surprised.
Dear Nate.
Oh man. Well, Nate, this has been a lot of fun, man. Tell everybody where they can find your book.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to come on and to promote it. So it's on Amazon and everywhere online where you would find, books. If you search the Philly Phenoms online, you can buy it on Barnes & Noble's website or Walmart's website. But the best way is to go to Amazon.com and search the Philly Phenoms. You can go to my website too, thephillyphenoms.com, and that'll give you a link too. But Amazon is number one for sure.
Very nice. Well, we will be sure to include links for all that stuff in our show notes. So, so people can find it and read it. So, Nate, we appreciate it, man. It's been a lot of fun learning more about you, about what you do, and about the book. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much for having me and for doing what you can to grow the game. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about, man. Well, like you said, it's all about who you get to play with. And for us, it's about that, plus who we get to meet through doing stuff like this. So for Nate and Jonathan, this is Robby. You guys have been listening to another episode of the Whole Story Podcast.